Thank you for tuning into our podcast, Canal Days, What Life is Like in the Industrial Connecticut River Valley of Massachusetts. I am your host, Carrie, and joining us today is Holyoke's very own local historian and creator of the historical tours of Greater Holyoke, Robert Como. He personally offers and leads public and private tours, as well as presentations of historical sites around communities throughout Massachusetts. Currently, the communities he has chosen to focus on this year are Holyoke, Chicopee, South Hadley, and East Hampton, and also Granby and Amherst as well. His tours spotlight the local canals, reservoirs, cemeteries, and churches, as well as various parks, streets, and selected historical houses within each community. In today's episode, we'll be discussing the Buttery Brook, which is located in South Hadley. So, explain the difference between the Buttery Brook and its tributary.
Alright, in South Hadley, Massachusetts, you have a lot of brooks, and they are most of the time quite obvious to people where they are. Most people around South Hadley will know about the Buttery Brook, the Stony Brook, and the Buttery Brook. They're very obvious. The first two empty out a great deal of water. They are enormous. They are really creeks. And so today we're going to talk about some of its tributaries of the Buttery Brook and why it's dammed so much, and then where it goes once it enters South Hadley Falls, because it's obvious when it's in the Plains neighborhood, but it's not obvious when it's the Falls neighborhood. And then what the future of the brook looked like, because there's a lot of people in South Hadley concerned about that. Alright, so the Buttery Brook and its tributary, what's the difference? The official Buttery Brook is the longest branch of this system, which is where it starts at a place which used to be where James River Graphic was, but now is the Pioneer Valley Performing Arts School on Albert Street. And there it starts on the swamp and slowly goes inwards through an area of power lines. And it's not always visible because it goes underground in pipelines as soon as it comes anywhere near the falls. Now, the tributary itself starts out near the Chicopee border with South Hadley. It might even start in Chicopee, officially. And then it crosses Route 33, Willimantic Street, and goes into the Buttery Brook Park. That is the Buttery Brook tributary. Now, most people would call that the Buttery Brook because the Buttery Brook Park is there, and they see the brook and they say, oh, that's the Buttery Brook. It's really the tributary of. And it's dammed a lot right through that park, and then in the area right below it, Hillcrest Park Apartments. And so we're going to talk about that quite a bit.
And why is the tributary dammed so much?
It's dammed a lot because it drops downhill very quickly. It's not a powerful one because of the amount of water it holds. It's powerful because it drops so quickly on its tributary. And that's another reason why people would call that the Buttery Brook, because the tributary has more power than the main branch itself. It's named after the main branch, the longest branch. Now, where is it dammed and what is it called? Right, so it's dammed quite a few times on that tributary, but it's also dammed quite a few times on its main branch. And so I'll talk about the four that are along the tributary. And I'll start with the uphill section. So you're down near the juncture of Route 202 and Route 116. That's near the Granby Road up ramp from Route 116. All right. And then in there used to be a dam. The breach dam is still visible if you go far enough into the thicket. And there used to be a small reservoir there. Now, if you go into Hillcrest apartment complex, there's Hillcrest Pond back there. It's really a reservoir. And the Hillcrest Dam is still there. It's about 100 feet long. It's an earthen dam with some concrete. It still has its spillway. That is the second reservoir dam system you meet on a tributary going upwards. Now, you go upwards past Hillside Road, and you quickly meet where the Buttery Brook Park is. And inside that park, in the back of the park, towards the west, you see a breached dam. One side of it's still there, and you can see it was quite big. I estimate that it probably held back about 12 feet worth of water upwards. About 1/16 of a million of gallons of water used out of there per day. That means it probably held about 500,000 gallons of water. All right, and that, of course, was concrete. Then, as you go to the eastern part of Buttery Brook near the entrance, there used to be another dam there, and that was like an intake dam. And that dam would settle the water down, and its job was similar to the first dam we talked about on this tributary, which is settled the water down. The two interior ones, Hillcrest and Buttery Brook, were for holding the water and distributing the water into the South Hadley Falls section of town. They were used as such from the beginning of the 1800s to the early part of the 1950s. And remnants are available for almost all these four dams. Now, the main stem of the Buttery Brook has on it two dams, the Titus Pond Dam. The Titus Pond Reservoir is still there in earthen dam format. And then also the Smith Reservoir, which is alongside the South Hadley High School. A very large reservoir is there. And there, there's mostly an earthen dam with a concrete spillway that they just fixed up. All right, and that again is a tributary coming into the Buttery Brook. So quite a bit there.
And really quick, before we continue with the rest of our interviews, just to let our listeners know, for more information or to sign up for any various tours, you can check out his website at holyokecanaltour.org. And there you can find videos and podcasts of the stops on each of his tours, as well as photos and text of the historical sites throughout as well. And for private tours and other inquiries, you can email him directly at bobcat4214, capital B, at yahoo.com. And his tours make for fun educational outdoor activities for families and group parties. So getting back to our interview, where does the Buttery Brook go once it enters South Hadley Falls?
It goes into a pipeline. That's because it caused too many floods in the past. In 1940, they put the flood wells up in the falls. They also started putting more of the Buttery Brook main stem into pipelines. Some of it already was before that point, but much more of it was put into it. It's only a bit of it visible. If you walk around, you see some of it once in a while, but mostly it's underground. So people don't know about it too much through the falls, but they certainly know about it through that park. So it's a very strange situation going on here. Also, when it comes out, where does it come out? Of course, it goes in the Connecticut River. It comes out very close to the Vietnam Veterans Bridge. And there, it's not very wide because it never really gets that much water put into it.
And what does the future hold for the brook?
Well, you can see the Buttery Brook Park itself has a bright future. And there you get to see that main body of water. Now, it's called Buttery Brook for a positive reason. When you look at the water, it's orangey color in it. That's because of the iron oxide that's naturally in the clay that's found around that area. So it's not for a negative reason. In most brooks and streams and rivers and creeks are named after either the place they end, some physical description about it, or some property of a color, a chemical reason. And so you have Bubbly Brook and Roaring Brooks, and you have the Connecticut River, right? And it fits into that agenda here. Why is it called the Buttery Brook? Because of the buttery look it has inside. It has sediment of iron oxide building up very naturally inside of it. And that's a nice positive reason. Now, it also has towards its end its outlet. A nice park called Riverside Park in South Hadley, and the brook actually passes through its very lowest end of it, so that part's also gorgeous. Its upper reaches on its main stem are in a swampland, and no one's going to touch that land. It's officially a wetland, and most of it goes passing through a natural area through there, even though it's not easy to find. So most of it is very easy to find and well preserved. Even its tributaries coming into it on the main stem are on conservation land. So a lot of positive things have happened, and a lot of positive will probably continue to happen.
And thank you, Robert, for educating us on your tours and historical topics of expertise. And of course, we want to thank our listeners for tuning in. And you can check out a large selection of other podcasts on this website, as well as on SoundCloud.com. I'm your host, Terry, and joining us today is Holyoke's very own local historian and creator of the historical tours of Greater Holyoke, Robert Como. He personally offers and leads public and private tours, as well as presentations of historical sites within communities throughout the state of Massachusetts. Currently, the communities he has chosen to focus on this year are Holyoke, Chicopee, South Hadley, and East Hampton. In today's episode, we'll be discussing the Buttery Brook Park. Tell us about some of the features of Buttery Brook Park.
For physical features, there's a lot going for it. Used to have a reservoir there, actually two of them, and two more outside the park. So it was reservoir land for South Hadley itself. And it has a lot of features in it, but even in my lifetime, those features change drastically from time to time. And I'm sure they'll keep changing in the future. Now, nowadays it has a spray park, it has a playground set, it has a tennis courts, pickleball, and down below it has pavilions. You can actually have group events there if you pay for the pavilion, and it has green grass way low down that we can go walking around. Has a trail system off to the side, and so thus it has lots of really cool things around. And the more you poke around, the more you can find there. And it has remnants of its old past too, if you look around for them. And of course, you should always go walk around here and see what it's like. South Hadley really loves this location. And in the past, we're going to talk about that soon, but in the past, it was definitely a reservoir situation where you would serve the water needs of homes around the falls area. There are 3 reservoir systems around South Hadley. The Leaping Well served the plains and the woodland. The Buttery Brook served the falls, and Lithia Springs serves the center.
And tell us about the reservoirs.
All right, and Buttery Brook has 4 reservoirs along it, which is simply incredible. In 1872, one was created within the park that could store 1/6 of a million gallons of water, and it furnished that to all the Falls District. All right, and it lasted in that way for 80 years in 1952 when they took it offline because they didn't really know if they could really keep pure water there. The landfill was built nearby, for instance. The highway was built nearby. Westover Air Force Base was nearby. All right, and the land was purchased by South Hadley itself from the fire district and kept in that state. And then in 1980, finally, the Parks Department superintendent asked the town if they can make it into a park, and they did that. And that's when it started to evolve into different things along the way, including they had a big swim pool at one time. So we'll talk about that situation. But imagine how many reservoirs you had. You had 4 here. One of them definitely all lied within the Buttery Brook. Another one called the intake was about 300 yards upwards towards the east. It was made to calm the waters down. It was a lot smaller. And that was taken out when they built up Route 33. And then there were 2 further down Buttery Brook. One that still exists inside Hillcrest Apartments. and that's still dammed up. And then one below that has it dammed very close to the up ramp for getting from the falls up onto Route 202. So there were 4 in a row, and they all had distinct chops to them.
And really quick before we continue with the rest of our interview, just to fill our listeners in, if you want to sign up for any tours or find out more information, you can check out his website at holyokecanaltour.org. And there you can find videos and podcasts of the stops along each of his tours, as well as photos and text of the historical sites throughout. And for more inquiries or to sign up for any private tours, you can email him directly at bobcat4214, And his tours make for fun, educational outdoor activities for families and group parties. So getting back to our interview, how has the Buttery Brook Park changed with the times?
It's got in probably the year 1970, they got a swimming pool inside of it, and that actually got people thinking, let's make a park behind there. And in 1980, that park was made. Right? And I think, this land could have been a park all along, but by getting a swimming pool in, people started to think, oh, we can do this. And a tennis court came in, and then the park came in, and they put an animal park along its southern edge, which lasted for decades. And then as times changes, they changed over. Swimming pools started to need too much insurance, and so they built a spray park for itself. And almost right away in 1980, they built pavilions where you could have weddings and other group parties happen there. And in the very back, they built picnic tables and a history. And they left a small remnant of the dam, so that's quite visible still. And up to nowadays, it still evolves. And for instance, a couple of years ago, they got pickleball court for itself. The animal farm was done away with like 10 years ago. In its place, they made it more open. They get into the Buttery Brook Park brook itself, and then they also made right down in the very back where the grass is. They made a bridge where you can get over the Buttery Brook and see the Buttery Brook itself. It's buttery, so maybe the reason a lot of iron oxide in the stream. That's why.
And also, what will the future of the park look like?
I would guess, well, you never know, but say a half century from now, it'll go with the times, whatever it's of interest then. Maybe it'll go back to being something else. Maybe it'll be a baseball field. Maybe it'll be flattened out and have a soccer field. It all depends upon how society's changing. And it changes so quickly sometimes, and these parks change with the times. All the parks in South Elliott changed drastically in my lifetime. They're so different. But they always have one thing in common: they serve what the people want at that time. So I invite you to go there and see what the park's about.
And thank you, Robert, for educating us on your tours and historical topics of your expertise. And we want to thank our listeners for tuning in. And you can check out a large selection of other podcasts on his website as well as on SoundCloud.com.